Kolasikolpa Kitak Mikomanas Kmit Beltamoted Wulastukewiak. I welcome you from the traditional territory of the people of the beautiful and bountiful river. And for those of you who may not have heard, we're trying to reclaim the traditional name of our river. It is now St. John, but it's really important for everything that that's been mentioned already this morning. You know, all the celebrations of our identity, that its first name is reclaimed, and so that's what we're working towards. I just want to really appreciate the story about the shoulders. That's so important because that's where our children need to be, is on our shoulders, you know, and to be lifted up, and so that they don't feel that shame that our ancestors felt when they were told you can't speak your language, you can't carry your own name, you know, which is, as you'll see on the bottom of the screen, the blossom was, that's my traditional name. But in our day school in Toby First Nation, the first day of school, I was told that's not your name. And so I was given a different name. So again, it's that identity that's really the core of what we can do to reclaim, to revive, to have that resurgence. So my presentation is called Ancestral Echoes because I've been teaching almost 30 years, and I always have to encourage my learners that they already have the language in them. It's that, you know, that dormancy that Dolores had mentioned. You know, it's that idea of waking it up, but it's there because our ancestors left it in our DNA. It just needs to be, it just needs to have new breath, you know, and new life. So that's what I'm talking about today, is ancestral echoes. On the bottom, you'll see the Guascunigisos, which means in my language, the thawing moon, which is the 29th day of this thawing moon today. Okay, so let me see if I can do so how do I go to the next one? That way? Oh, yes. Oh my goodness, I'm so clever. Signal Soldiben. This is a traditional, this is a traditional greeting that we had that's not used today, because Signal Soldiben, we have survived the harshness of winter. This was used in a time before electricity, before the dams, before highways, before colonization, before all of that, where our people were really blessed to see the new season because they had to depend, you know, on the survival from our land. So a true gift of spring is filled with renewal, hope, and enlightenment, as we've already heard in our presentations today, with all the, you know, sharing of identity from all the beautiful winners. Our mother tongues are experiencing the harshness of this, of exclusion, leading to language and cultural loss. Nevertheless, our sacred lands within our territories still echo our stories and songs, as Mike shared with us, you know, at our beautiful opening. You know, they still echo our stories and songs, planting seeds for renewal, revitalization, and resiliency from past generations. This gift is left behind for this generation to carry for generations yet to be born. This presentation will share a story and song of language renewal efforts within an intergenerational environment, and especially as a guide to foster our shared traditions of knowing the merits of our interrelationship with all our ancestral echoes from our territories. And so that's just to give you, so what I wanted to share with you, in back of, you might remember the beautiful Verna Kirkness, who was doing tours to New Zealand back in the 90s. I was lucky enough to be invited to one of her language initiatives back in 96, 97, when we went to New Zealand and spent the month with the Maoris, because we were excited that they were able to revive their language. And how they did it is they sent their learners, or their, you know, going to be teachers, to Quebec. And the reason they sent them to Quebec was they wanted to know how can a country like Canada have one province that's totally in their mother tongue. So, or in their French. So they wanted to know, how did they do it? What did they do? How did they make policies? How do they change government ideas, etc.? So they sent their teachers to be, and they spent a few years there. But while they were in Quebec, they had a chance to go visit all the First Nations across our country. And so what they did is they wrote a song and they gifted to us in 97 to say to all 30, I think there were 35 teachers that we all spent time together back then. And they gifted us this song. And this song was supposed to, this is what they felt about our languages here in Canada. So the idea was we were all supposed to take this song and translate them to our languages and then meet in 10 years to record it. Well, life happens, things never did. So I'm teaching this song now to my entire school, staff, and students, and I'm translating it and I'm recording it. I'm doing a video and I'm sending it back to New Zealand to give to the people because I'll never forget how they were able to revive their language. So I'm just going to go through this. So these are kindergarten. These are some of the illustrations my kindergarten to grade 6 students illustrated for us. So the first verse of the song is Waliwan, Waliwan, which is thank you, thank you. Children of First Nations, set our language free from the heart of every family, there for you and me. And what I tell my students is, you already have the language in there. I'm just kind of bringing you memory banks, so you could remember what your great 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 grandmother used to speak. And so I'm just kind of giving you little bits of it every day so that you can remember to love your language. You have to love it. So what I ask them to do is to draw their families so that everybody in the home will be speaking the language and not just the student who sometimes I feel our parents send them to school, go learn your language, and bring it back, but it's not used in the home. So I always feel that those shoulders that, that have been mentioned, sometimes we're adding too many expectations on our students to go learn the language in a classroom and bring it home for others. We need the home to also be, and the whole community to be immersed in the language. Um, and of course, the second verse is, we felt the language in the rainbow as it lay upon the land. From sacred drums, spirits speak, together we are free. And so you see the rainbow, and of course, it's our treasure. And I always tell them, language isn't just in our books. Language isn't just in the school classroom or the school environment. It's in the woods, it's in the sky. I want you to feel that language isn't a subject, it's a life, and I want you to accept that life as part of you. So when you see that rainbow knows our language. When you see the clouds, those clouds know our language. When you hear the drums, those are the echoes of our great grandmothers before us, because when we're inside our mother's wombs, we heard the echo of our grandmothers and the heartbeat of our mother. And so we also heard her mothers. So that's what we need to do. So when we sound our drums, it's with that echo of our languages. Together we are free. And of course, all my relations, we teach that to our children. And as Mike mentioned in our prayer, the winged ones, the water clan, the earthlings, and the standing ones, we have relations around us. So we saw the language in the mountains where bear and cougar roam. We saw it on the wings of eagles nestling home. So they opted to draw eagles. This is grade 1. And so again, so we do have uh, what I do is we do feathers, and we ask the children to put language on feathers to actually take home to families who may have had a recent death in their family. And so and then we're teaching the children to also go and drum outside of the home, just to make sure that the echoes of our ancestors are soothing and healing. So we do a lot of those ceremonies for the community from our school. The next one, of course, I'm calling it food security to food insecurity, because I worry about our food security. Our salmon, all these fishing wars, lobster wars, and things that the government is limiting, and so our children need to know, how our language is fed through the foods that we eat. We heard the language of the river, calling salmon back to spawn. We heard it whisper gently in the early morning dawn. So those sunrise ceremonies are very important, but also traditional foods. I remember hosting a summer camp for high school students back in the mid 90s, and the Miramichi was so filled with salmon. We ordered salmon and all our traditional foods, and we brought it to the 30 students. And not one student wanted to eat salmon. They wanted hot dogs and hamburgers, and which is understandable. But it was a really big awareness for me then that, oh my goodness, our children aren't honoring our traditional foods. What's going to happen to our traditional foods if our own children aren't going to be eating traditional food? So I'm still very adamant in our community that when we have our community feast, there has to be traditional food. That has to be shared and enjoyed and talked about and passed on to future generations. Our feasts, Waliwan, Waliwan, we tasted language in the berries where hummingbirds delight, Saskatoons and blueberries, a taste of paradise. And so, like you say, those, from Saskatoon would know those berries. And so again, it's this ceremonies that we do with picking our medicines and teaching our children how to name these traditional foods. Language in the home isn't just about labeling table, chair, cupboard. It's also labeling the foods, and of course, the sensory things of which berry tastes sweet, which berry is sour, which so all of those language initiatives that we get to do. So that was a beautiful picture of our berries, our language of ceremony. So this was a grade 5 student. We smelled the language in the forest of spruce and cedar air, the scent of sage and sweetgrass from smoke in ritual prayer. It's been so amazing at the school to bring smudging and to be able to see little babies that are just learning how to stand up and walk. When they see me bring with come with the sweetgrass in the mornings or sage in the afternoons, they know what to do. They know how to do it, and excited to do it. So this is one of the activities that's really important are those ceremonies. Okay, so next, oh, so language in the home. Children of First Nations set our language free from the heart of every family, there for you and me. Ironically, this little picture up here, one of the children that drew this from the kindergarten class said, I have a baby brother who didn't survive, and that baby brother is in heaven. So I just thought it was so amazing that he still included that baby brother in this little diagram, and of course the pets. So just that cultural pride. So again, the next this is the last verse of the song. It's "O great Creator, set our children free. Hear our native tongue speak for eternity." And since this was a song, that's what the two it means. It's sung twice. And so that's a prayer. That's our prayer. All of us here today together. It's let's carry language forward for those not yet born. And so this is, so all of this is what, so what are our partnerships in my territory? So Bilowi Dahazawagan. Um, uh, I know, Paulette, that's a really big word, but thank you for trying, for earlier when you were trying to say names that were hard to pronounce. We all have to try. And so that's our word for reconciliation, except we call it reconciliation. And so while I was at UNB, our past president asked, how do you say reconciliation? And I said, well, for one thing, in English, it's a noun. In our language, it's a verb. So this is how we would say it. So bilwi means changing. Dahas, changing attitudes and minds. Wagon, whilst the wagon is the life, and you have to walk the talk of that changed attitude. And so that's what this is. So these are some of the partnerships that we have. And, so as Simon had mentioned, from the womb to beyond is prenatal. I get the honor of singing to babies before, while they're still in the womb. And then to prepare them for right now, we're working with midwives, and for a long time, midwives weren't welcome here in New Brunswick. I mean, they were considered, not to be licensed or even promoted, but things have changed because I have a grandson who's 25 who was a home birth. I insisted that my first grandchild would be a home birth, and I did all the right things. I made sure that there were EMTs. I had an elderly, my grandmother's friend, who was my midwife, and and was able to bring my grandson to birth at home. And it was an amazing experience. I missed it because I was doing graduate work at the University of Arizona, Tucson, where I met Frida Henneque. We were classmates together for that month. It was beautiful experience meeting her and being with her. But so I missed it. But my son got to deliver his son. So just 8 days ago, I became a great grandmother to a little girl. So, and I do remember when I was becoming a grandmother 25 years ago, I remember telling my elders, I'm going to be a grandparent too. And I said, wait till I become a grandparent. That's even more exciting. And I have to admit, it really is. I don't know what it is about that next generation that you had something to do with. And I just feel so, when I see myself in the mirror, I see my grandmother, I see my mother. It's just a beautiful experience to be a great grandparent. And of course, part of that resiliency is naming ceremonies. So we talked yesterday on a UNESCO, Canadian Commission of UNESCO team on what can we do to revive languages for our peoples. And I suggested that one of the things we should do is begin to do naming ceremonies in our traditional languages for every child that's born. Imagine in 10 years, in this decade of, indigenous languages, that if we all did that and started from here on to add to the ones we've already named, but to continue to name them in our language, that's a really strong way of saving languages. So I'm still doing that. And I have to admit, I think my babies that I've named are up to 200. Matter of fact, I'm doing more. Now adults are asking for it. So I'm still doing a lot of names. In my school, I do seven names a month for our students. And they're so excited. And what I do is I have little wooden feathers with their spirit name on it that they proudly wear around their neck, So it's which we'll be doing more, I see our naming ceremonies as when we have our, Mawiomas or our powwows, that there's a grand entry of these newest babies with these spirit names as being, ceremonially welcomed. and stuff, and so that's important. Memorandum of understandings with health authorities. It's important in that second thing that I do for my Wolastoqey communities or Maliseet communities. There are seven of us, seven communities that I work with, and we do mental wellness initiatives. And so what we do is we're doing our own policies and procedures. Right now, I'm working on doing a framework for Indigenous service delivery and making it more culturally relevant. And so, so it's really important that health authorities not just tell us, here's your money, but this is what you're going to do with it. Last year on April 22nd, I may have mentioned this before, but on last year of April 22nd on Earth Day, I invited Horizon Health and Vitality, which are the two health authorities here in New Brunswick, invited their directors or CEOs, all of our chiefs, and all of our chiefs and all of our health directors around a sacred fire, because I was telling the authorities, it's time you come to our council instead of us going to your hotels. Granted, everybody wants to go to the hotels, but it's also important that they come to our communities and do things traditionally in our way. Come to our council fire, and we actually had little tiny wampum belts, and I did 13 rows for for 13 moons, and one for each of the communities. And so the idea, the memorandum of understanding is once a year we come together in a First Nation community, and they listen to our elders, our youth, our citizens on what the concerns are as far as health is concerned. And that way they take that with them to their offices as opposed to the other way around. So now we have smudging policies that are in the languages. They're in Mi'kmaq and Wolastoqey for our hospitals. We've been able to convince the hospitals that at times of stress, smudging should be allowed, in the hospitals. We've designed posters in the languages. With education, we're working with Francophone and Anglophone sectors in the province to do treaty education. And so I'm doing a little animation of a treaty education app that my grade 6 students from last year totally did the play that I wrote back in 2003, but it was my grade 6 students last year who are reading the play and the parts in the language, and I'm doing the English. So I'm so excited for that to come out. So hopefully it'll be out by next month. So treaty education is important because, as we said, that everything that's been mentioned before is what does treaty mean? Okay, so it's important that everybody becomes a treaty member or treaty family member. So I'm proposing to the Minister of Education here in our province to do Treaty Tuesdays and Treaty Thursdays, and they've accepted the proposal. We're just kind of working out the details and partnerships for funding. So the idea is, and maybe some of you are already doing this, especially out west in your numbered treaty territories. And so what we're doing for Treaty Tuesday is every school in the province will learn the same fact about a treaty in our territory, and it'll be through the intercom, or we're not sure yet how to deliver those vignettes or just facts, but it'll be the same one for every school. And then Thursday will be another one. So they learn two things about treaties throughout the school year. And at the end of the year, we're going to have a knowledge bowl and do testing of schools who learned the most about treaties. And so I'm really excited about that. And it kind of helps the non-Indigenous teachers who don't know anything about our treaties, that it's generated by our people, by our elders, by our experts, by our language, on what that we're going to teach about our treaties. Wabanaki Wednesdays. I really want every school through calls to action to learn something about whatever territory they're in, to learn about what's the name of that traditional name of that territory, what's the history of that territory, what's the song that's sung in that territory, what's the ceremony that's usually done for this, for that, but or learn how to make something that's local in their territory. So we're going to be doing that for Wabanaki Wednesdays as a call to action for every school to be teaching every child about our people that live on the land with them. I do language camps. University courses will give you 3 hours a week, which I did that for 30 years. 3 hours a week, one course, and you can't develop speakers teaching them 3 hours a week. So what I've proposed is I've started in my retirement, and of course they said I'm not going to teach, I'm not going to do anything, I'm just going to write. But they asked if I would come back and teach a course. I said only if I can teach it as a camp. I want an entire week, all 36 hours to be done all in 1 week. And so that's what we're doing. And then I'm doing weekends. So I'm doing adult learners. So we'll do all day Saturday and all day Sunday. And then on the land, we'll be going to different places to pick medicine, to, know the names of the trees as opposed to just saying one word for tree. So we're doing a lot of that on the land teaching this summer for our language camps and helping adult learners. And I'm actually getting whole families that are going to come together and spend time together in the language. I'm designing language apps. All of you must have heard about Wordle. So I got an idea of doing a Wolastoqey Wordle. So I've done 6 and 7 letter words. Now I'm working on 4 letter words. And for those who don't know the language at all, we'll give you little tiny hints in English of what word we're looking for. So it's like a dictionary Wordle. I know I can't call it Wordle, so we have a name for it. I'm also developing those stories that we talked about, that Mike talked about at our beginning. I'm actually having, because I've been collecting stories all my life because I come from a storytelling family. So I have stories from my grandmother, I have stories from my uncles, I have stories from my aunts, I have stories from my aunts. And so I'll be bringing those stories onto a website, and my tech expert is going to be doing a little ball on top of the word as the elder is actually saying it. And then you'll have the translation below it. So it'll be just like a new way of hearing, the story, but also hearing the language in a good way. And so that way we never lose those stories. And of course, the website development. So all my work through the 30 years that I've been an educator, I'm going to house it all on one site. Learning, I haven't done it yet, how to do podcasts. I have to do YouTube things. I have to learn how to do TikTok. There's something else my experts are telling me that they're going to expand this learning on. So that's one way of doing, of sharing all this work. Elder curriculum, it's very important. I'm just going to elder curriculum. So that's what I developed at the school. So I do have a learning lodge. It's a teepee, but I've set it up so that I can do storytelling there, and then bringing the students and the staff. Gazelman Kchigigwasan means we love our Earth Mother. So for April, starting on April 1st, every day there'll be a phrase for our school to learn, staff included. And so what we'll do is I'll have an activity on how to prove that you really love our Earth Mother. For example, I think for April 1st, I have planned spring clean your desk. You know what I mean, for the students. Then the next day will be spring clean our playground. Third day will be let's sing to our Earth Mother and tell her we love her. So there'll be a different activity and something to do each day for the whole month. And I'm developing one for the community because I don't want the children to be learning all these amazing things about, being responsible stewards of our Earth Mother. I want the parents to learn as well. Turtle Talks is done in our learning lodge, and that's for young girls learning about puberty. And so what language goes with that, and what responsibilities go with Turtle Talks? What's a strawberry fest? Strawberry feast, and all of that. Most tracks is for young boys. It's the same. It's the same idea, but it's grade 4, 5, and 6 boys will be coming in, and they're learning that responsibility of learning how to be a respectful young boy and young man. We're building a sweat lodge. We're waiting for the ground to be well enough, but I host a bi-weekly Zoom session with moms in the community because I'm getting them ready to be helpers of the sweat lodge at our school. Because I said it can't just be the elder who's going to be taking care of the sweat lodge. So therefore, you're going to need to learn responsibilities. The men will be the fire keepers. The women will make sure they're going to take care of the water, the cedar lining for so there's lots of responsibilities for our sweat lodge teachings. We have a greenhouse that was donated by a local nursery, and so our children will be learning to plant seeds all over again. We're developing cultural sensory paths. So I have fur. I want them to know, oh, this is beaver fur, this is fox fur, this is rabbit fur, and just to get them out of the classrooms to come in and see there. So we're doing these little pathways in our hallways that'll have pictures of insects and birds and outdoors. It's like bringing the outdoors in, but they'll be learning it in the language. And sacred spaces, very important. So we're learning, and the sacred is it has to do with going to the east and learning, okay, what do I give gratitude to in, yeah. And of course, sacred fires. We do these weekly. We do the sacred fires. And as our elder Mike prayed for Ukraine, we did a silent sacred fire for Ukraine, the people of Ukraine and the children, because we wanted them to. I told them, I said, it's really noisy where they're at right now because of bombs and airplanes and screams and hollering and fear. So tomorrow when we have our sacred fire, we're going to do it in silence so we could pray for them and pray for that they'll get the silence and relief from all that noise from the bombs. And so the little boys offered their tobacco and the little girls offered their water to our Earth Mother to symbolize the tears that are being shed for wars. Cultural arts, we have elders coming in to do basket making, drum making, and lots of other, we're designing regalia for every single student in the school. We have skirts for the girls. We're making vests for the boys so they can be culturally sound. Okay, think there's one more slide. So this is the last slide. Liwan Walal,
Perfect.
Ekozi, Marci, Nakumek. May our languages continue to hold sacred breath of our ancestors, sing our songs, tell our stories, harvest our traditional medicines, praise our learners, honor our teachers, celebrate our speakers, and listen with love to our elders. Waliwan, thank you. I'll